तज मन में मिथ्या कुसंग, शरण प्रभु की आ जा रे। पल पल जीवन जाए रे, कर ले प्रभु का भजन, शरण प्रभु की आ जा रे।
Hari Om. Good evening to everyone in India. Good morning to everyone in the United States, and a good day to everyone in between the two continents. We have a very enlightening session today. Before we start the session, could I just request Mahesh to play a video on the Vedanta Wisdom Trust and its activities.
Life today poses challenges at various levels. Modern day living is threatened by anxiety, depression, failure at work, climate change, and war. But is a life of peace and harmony with fast-paced progress possible or even conceivable? The answer, a resounding yes, lies in the ancient Indian philosophy of Vedanta. This pristine knowledge of life and living, as found in texts like the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, has answers to all human problems and is a pathway to the ultimate goal of human existence, God or self-realization. The Vedanta Wisdom Trust's mission is to educate humanity on this knowledge. Towards this end, it holds weekly online classes attended by learners from all over the world. The Trust's e-learning platform offers a number of self-paced certificate courses. Offline events include outstation retreats, seminars, public lectures, and workshops. Top professionals can learn and apply Vedantic knowledge in their fields through the Trust's corporate workshop services. The Trust's upcoming project, the Vedanta Wisdom University, will be the world's first university with a curriculum based on Vedanta. Along with education that provides a means of livelihood, it aims to empower its students to become tomorrow's leaders who can think creatively and advance humankind as a whole. Spearheading the Trust and its services is Dr. Janki Santokh, a well-known proponent of Vedanta for over 3 decades now, a sought-after teacher of the subject and an author who writes for The Speaking Tree, The Economic Times, and more. Her first book, How Do You Know What You Know, examines thinking and its effects on life. Her book, The Happiness Guarantee, The Philosophy of Happiness, delves into the foundational principles, exposing why our pursuit often leads astray. It uncovers the role of desire and helps master the mind for lasting joy. The Happiness Guarantee 2, The Attitudes of Happiness, explores contentment through key life areas. Discover fulfilling attitudes towards enjoyments, money, work, stress, love, and knowledge. Integrate ethics and spirituality for a truly happy life. The Happiness Guarantee 3, The Habits of Happiness, offers concise, actionable habits for immediate change. It is a practical guide packed with 100 tips, designed for those who want to do, not just read. Start implementing these habits today. Dr. Janki Santok's next book explores relationships through Vedanta. Discover timeless wisdom for modern connections. Learn how ancient principles transform love and harmony. True connection begins within. The Vedanta Wisdom Journal is a platform dedicated to spreading the timeless teachings of Vedanta and exploring their relevance in contemporary times. Jankiji's social media presence continues to grow, with the YouTube channel Team Janki Santok comprising a subscriber base of thousands across continents. To learn more, please visit
Hari Om, everyone again, and welcome to all those who joined after the first announcement about the video. Again, to reiterate, we have a very exciting session today. Would want to introduce the two gurus who are going to take us through the topic of happiness this evening. If you're in India, morning if you're in the United States. Want to introduce Swami Sarvapriyananda ji or Swamiji. Swamiji has joined the order of Ramakrishna monks in 1994 as a novitiate. Within just a decade, acquired the formal title of Swami in 2004. He's currently the head of Vedanta Society of New York. His discourses have captivated audiences around the world, especially now that the world has moved virtual. He has followers around the world. He's spoken at the Rubin Museum in New York. He's spoken at IIT Kanpur, Parliament of World Religions. And Swamiji has been a friend, philosopher, and guide for us, even at the Vedanta Wisdom Trust. Welcome, Swamiji. Thank you for joining us. Would now also want to introduce Dr. Janki Santok, or Janki ji, as her students endearingly and lovingly call her. Janki ji has been a student and then a teacher and scholar of Vedanta now for 4 decades. Her service to the cause takes many forms. She's a public speaker. She has held sessions online, offline. She's a corporate resource. She's now an author of 4 books, the 4th one actually to be released today. As we saw in the video, she writes articles for leading publications. She has a very popular YouTube channel, Team Janki Santok. And most importantly for her students, she's a resource daily for our daily studies, and she takes weekly classes. We'll talk more about her classes. Welcome, Janki ji. Good evening. Now, we've all gathered here for this occasion to launch the to release the 3rd edition of Janki ji's book, Happiness Guaranteed, The Habits of Happiness. As one was looking at the way to introduce this series, one of the very interesting things that came up in research is that how everything in life fundamentally boils down to the power of 3 states of consciousness, 3 human temperaments. McKinsey has this thing, the global consulting firm, that there are 3 answers to any problem in the world. And it's so interesting. If you look at any of the modern classics that a lot of the young people today would have probably heard of, read, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, all these classics are written in 3. The syllable Om signifies 3, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. So very excited today to have Swami Sarvapriyananda ji release the book formally and say a few words about the book. Thank you, Swamiji.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaste, everybody, both here in the United States and in India and from different parts of the world. Special namaste to Janki ji, and congratulations, not only from my side, from all of us. Because today, this event marks the completion of a journey, but also a beginning, a wider and greater beginning from today onwards. So her triad or trilogy, The Happiness Guarantee, is now complete with its 3 volumes. We're going to specially talk about the 3rd volume. I hereby formally declare the book released. Ayam Arambha Shubhaya Bhavatu. Let this beginning be auspicious.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. May I invite Swamiji and Janki to begin the discourse on the book today. But before we go there, Mahesh, could we have the details about how our participants today and anyone who may look at a recording can actually buy the book? This book is now available in a physical format for those who can acquire the book in a physical format. It's also in line with the times available on a Kindle version. We have a lot of young participants today, and if you are more inclined to read it on your ebook or a Kindle, the link is there to buy the book. As you go into the VedantaWisdom.in website and go onto the publications page, you can also see ways and means to get your hands on the earlier editions of the book if you want to buy it as a trilogy, as Swamiji says. Without further ado, Swamiji and Janki, please take the proceedings forward. Thank you. Hari Om.
You're muted. You're muted, Swamiji.
I was just saying thank you, Deepak ji, and thank you for having me once again on the program. I was there at the beginning of the journey, and the Principles of Happiness, the 1st volume was released, and then the Attitudes of Happiness, the 2nd volume, and now the triad is complete with the practices. So let's dive straight into it. We will ask Janki ji to guide us through particularly this new volume, of course. But a broad question first, Janki ji. How do we use the triad? How do we read it? How do we use it?
Basically, the triad is for 3 different types of people, or maybe I should say 3 different types of interests. The first is if you want the philosophical, the cause and effect, the first principles. Some people want the whole picture first. So that's what the first book is about. The second one is application of those principles to create our attitudes towards various aspects of our life, enjoyments or stress or money or relationships, ethics, what is knowledge, what is spirituality. So application to all these things. And the third book is really for people who don't want to read. They are the people who say, look, don't tell me too much stuff, tell me what to do. So this third book is just telling you what to do. So depending on where anyone is, what are they wanting at the moment, they can start with anyone, and then maybe at some other point, they might want to know the other answers too. So basically, it's just saying the same thing 3 times with 3 different sort of readers or interests in mind, let's say. So how do you use it? Whichever one is at the moment top of the mind for you. Would you like more action habits? What am I to do? Would you like more understanding of the whole? Or would you like to understand the attitudes towards specific aspects of life? So whatever anybody wants.
Well, that's interesting. But speaking for myself, and I think speaking for a lot of us, I think we want all 3. And maybe there are 3 different kinds of questions or demands which come up from within us. And so these 3 address all those questions. I am just reminded of Swami Vivekananda. I mean, to set context to this discussion, he was fond of this story about the man on whose head a mosquito sat, and his friend came to help him. And to, what he did was give us such a big whack to the mosquito that the mosquito died, but the man also died. And he said, often the kind of advice that we get from the ancient spiritual traditions of the world is like that. It does solve the problem, but it's not the kind of solution that we want. And what he was saying there is that renunciation, it is central to spiritual paths and certainly central to Vedanta, but it has to be understood carefully because, after all, if the problem is that we are suffering in the world, and the answer is, well, you have to give up desires, you have to give up worldly attitudes and engagements with the world, renunciation in one word. In that case, what is left? Because all that we know is this world, our relationships, our job, money, possessions, activities in this world. And if you're supposed to just renounce, is it at all possible? Is it at all desirable? Is that the real meaning of renunciation? And Swami Vivekananda, he said that's not the real meaning of renunciation. He says it's to deify the world, to see God in everything, and thereby engage in the world in that way. Now, the question there arises is that practically, what do we do? I think that's where the trilogy, and especially the third book, comes in. Practically, on a day-to-day basis, in terms of relationships, in terms of job, in terms of money, what does Vedanta have to say, and what advice does Vedanta give to live the Vedantic life? I know, Jankiji, you have given a lot of emphasis. You're focused on habits, especially in this book. Please tell us a little bit about habits, its relationship to a Vedantic life. How can habits help us? What are they and how can they help us?
A lot of us spend a lot of time thinking, because as philosophers, we love that. We love the theory, and philosophers are not really interested in the practical aspect of life. They love the theory, they love understanding the knowledge. But real life catches up with us. There are some real needs that you need to have money, you need to have a certain amount of contact with the world, you need to make the relationships work. So, what can we do? How do we organize ourselves? The easiest thing to do is have these habits so that we don't create any problems. And if we don't create any problems, you saved yourself a lot of time and effort, which is what philosophers like to do. They like to save themselves time and effort. So just doing something, taking up something. Okay, suppose I want to handle my finances, for instance. Then I have to have some habit. Let's take for example, I have a certain income. If I have 100 rupees income, I have to decide for myself, I want to save, let us say, 50% of it. Then month on month, that habit has to go on until my corpus is large enough that I never go to work because I want money. I'm doing service. Money is there. Or even enjoyments. We kill our enjoyments. People want more enjoyment because what they have is not giving pleasure. So why is what they have not giving pleasure? Because you're doing too much, you contact it so much till the pleasure dies. Like you have the first mango, it's fabulous. Second one, okay. Third one, too much. And if you're forced into the fourth one, this is not pleasure, this is torture. So why not create a habit that I know I want to see so many movies a month, or I want to have this many mangoes, or I have to eat so much and fast so much. Create those habits. So you're all the time enjoying. Create a habit of, say, like multiple things. And once we create these habits, life just becomes so smooth that if anything that comes left of field, you have the resources, mental, physical, financial, to handle all these things. Otherwise, it's just one mess of confusion. So these daily habits, or as many as we can inculcate, will just prevent problems and leave us available to handle any that happen to drop into our laps, So this daily, what we do is daily, weekly, whatever schedule we have, we do is critical in life. What's the use of talking about it? We do it on a daily basis, no?
Right, that's wonderful. There's so much insight in there. People chase happiness, and the tragedy is, as you said, indulging unwisely in it, they kill that very happiness. And the wisdom in this approach, the creating positive habits, sustainable habits of happiness, is that you're actually maximizing happiness. You're not giving up happiness. That's really wonderful. I'm fond of quoting Somerset Maugham on the folly of chasing pleasure, which says, if you single-mindedly chase pleasure, very soon you find nothing pleasing anymore. And that's so true. One great source of unhappiness and happiness is our own mind, especially our emotions.
Mhm.
We all know how we ourselves or people we know um, quite clearly are maximizing unhappiness, sorrow, rather than happiness because of uncontrolled or unregulated emotions. I know you have spoken about emotions in a number of habits towards the end of this book. Can you tell us a little more about what habits can regulate our emotions so that our happiness is maximized, not unhappiness?
Yes, there are actually many, but at the base of it is I know what bothers me. I know what gives me pleasure. I know the things I want. Why can't I make habits out of it? Like I know that I want children, for instance. Okay, so I make a habit like, okay, I spend this amount of time with my child on a daily basis, or this amount of time I'm spending with my spouse on a daily basis, or with my friends. This is what, and I have regularized it. So I don't come to a situation where I've created like a pressure cooker inside myself. I'm longing for something and I don't get it. The other very nice habit to cultivate is when I'm upset, what do I do?
Mm.
When I'm upset, what I do is I at least, I mean, various things, but the one important one is at least find a safe place to vent. People don't know who to go. Suppose I'm angry with my husband, the last person I should go and shout at is my husband because he's also involved, right, in that. So maybe I have to go and talk to somebody else and say, he's bugging me so much, this, that, and the other. And then when my emotions settle down, I can decide what I want to do about the situation. But we start venting almost indiscriminately, like anybody. The maid comes, you'll tell her. If the neighbor comes, and people will talk. So you're just creating trouble, you're just scabriating the whole thing. So create the habit that, okay, if I want to vent, this is a safe place for me to go and vent. If I want to be praised, then at least I should go to somebody who I know will praise. If I want to be praised, I can come to you, Swamiji. I know you will always use very kind words. But what is the point of me going to somebody who I know never praises me, who will never praise me, who doesn't know how to praise me, but I'll go to that person and say, praise me? How is this going to happen? So when you create the right habits, okay, you get your desires fulfilled. You don't create this, this pressure cooker within ourselves till we burst. You know what you are. Deal with it properly with regular habits.
That's wonderful. I'm reminded of a particular practice which really impressed me, is to begin with the end in mind. So, would you tell us a little more about that? How every little action which we do, it's always wonderful to begin with what you expect out of it. Can you tell us a little more about it? Give some example.
Like suppose I enter the house and my son is watching television. I know his exams are just a few days away. And I say, what are you doing? Are you mad? Why are you watching television now? Don't you know you have to study? So, I'm irritated. As a parent, I can be. So when I'm about to say all this, I need to stop and ask myself, what am I trying to achieve by these words? And by saying this now, will I achieve it? If my answer is yes, by shouting at him, now he will go and study, then please go ahead and shout. But if I'm not going to achieve it, then why am I performing this action? So train myself to constantly ask, what am I trying to do? And is this action going to lead there?
Yes, I think that's really useful. We often plunge into action on instinct. Whatever is uppermost in our mind, especially whatever emotion is uppermost in our mind, instigates that action. And if we just have this filter which Janki ji suggested, what do I want? I clearly want something. What do I want from this action? we will be often startled to see for ourselves immediately that we are not going to get what we want through this kind of behavior. I am reminded of something I saw in a school, a children's classroom in a school. There were these sayings written on the walls. One of the sayings which really struck me was, in any problem, ask yourself, am I a part of the problem or part of the solution? So often we see when we are struggling with a problem, often it's relationships-based problem. The way we are approaching it, the words we are using, the tone of the voice, the emotional valence, the emotional content of my voice, my expression, body language, all of that might just be exacerbating the problem instead of moving towards a solution. That's beautifully stated. And that's a wonderful filter. Just by the way, for those who are listening, this book has 100 such insights which can be immediately translated into action. Insights just like the one using a filter for our, what am I trying to achieve with this? Moving on to work, what do we do? What are we supposed to do in life, Janki ji? I know Vedanta will always tell us, do your swadharma, that's the best. So in your book, you discuss what is swadharma, how do I decide what is swadharma, why is it important to do our swadharma? So what is swadharma? How do I know my swadharma? What help is it to us if we follow our swadharma?
The first choice if we make in life is correct, then everything after that comes out right. So basically, if you take up paradharma means, for those who are new today, para means alien, dharma means nature, swa means one's own, and dharma means nature. So paradharma means doing something that's not my nature. I'm a mathematician, I'm doing a beauty care course. It's not going to work. Or I'm a beautician, I'm doing a mathematics course. It's not going to work. So if I just, in all areas of my life, decide what is my nature and choose that field, then I've taken the first step right. Most people do that instinctively. The problem comes at the second step. The second step is we have to, in our swadharma, have a higher vision. Like if I'm a business person and my vision is just what is my bottom line going to be, then this business is going to agitate me no end. Everything people are looking at from a perspective, we're all looking at only from, this is a feather in my cap. If I get a Nobel Prize, this is a feather in my cap. This is not a feather in my cap. This is a recognition of some service that is done. It's not about me, it's about the service. So can I live in my swadharma with a sense of service? So I do my business to serve my customers and other stakeholders, or I run my house to serve the people in the house. So whatever is my swadharma, I choose my nature. So I'm usually doing things I love because I've gone into that field, and I use it for service. So the joy unfolds even further. In every field, I'll have to do things I don't like. But now I've got two very strong, joyous things. So this little bit pinpricks, I'll take in my stride because they're not bothering me. But if I don't do one of these two things, then these pinpricks are going to become major volcanic mountains in my mind. So going by your nature always keeps you comfortable. But if you have unselfishness on top of it, then you're king of the world.
That's a beautiful combination. Flow according to one's nature, do work according to one's nature, that's one, and on a foundation of selflessness. So that's doing one's swadharma. I am reminded of the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who worked in the area of attention and fulfillment, concentration fulfillment. And he pointed out that some surveys have shown that people are actually happiest when they are working. It's interesting that if you ask them, they say we are happy after we have finished our work, or when I go on a vacation, I'll be happy, on a Sunday, I'll be happy. But when they're actually working, when the surveys were done, how do you feel right now? Generally, their level of satisfaction and fulfillment was more when they were engaged in work. So especially if it's work which is according to our own nature and on the basis of selflessness, yes, it's always a great idea to have a good time while working.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
yes,
sorry. And it also makes sense. Logically, it makes sense because what is causing me happiness or what is causing me agitation is that my mind is going here and there. So if I'm completely focused on work, it's like meditation. It's just focused. And it's immediately silent and peaceful and shant,
yeah,
A poet writing poetry, a painter painting, they're working. Even a
yeah,
person cooking, they're working.
yeah.
Even a person deciding for his business what to do, he's working. It's completely peaceful.
Yes. You remind me of in my very early days as a monk, I had to work in the temple and I had to work in the school and the office. And I told a monk in the ashram, when I am in the temple and doing the puja or attending the arati or meditating, I feel I'm doing something spiritual. But, in the school or in the office, it's just work. And the monk said something that has stayed with me all these nearly 30 years. He said, "Oh, really? But when I am writing a letter, I feel as much calmness as I do in meditation." He said, literally, it's like meditation for me. An interesting insight I was beginning to understand what karma yoga, the karma yoga is really spirituality. It's not just doing a lot of work. Um, Another thing you said about the real problem is the restless mind. That's what makes us suffer, not work. Often people think the work is a source of trouble. Somehow get it over with, then I will enjoy. But that never really happens. It's self-defeating. Most of our time and energy is taken up by work. So that work itself should be a source of joy, of happiness, of spiritual progress. And that's the basic idea behind karma yoga. I'm reminded of what a monk said. He said, which I love quoting. I'll tell you in Hindi first and then translate. He said, आपको लगता है संसार के चलते मन अशांत है, लेकिन महात्मा जी अशांत मन के चलते संसार है. You think you are upset because of samsara, all the demands from the world, all the troubles in the world. That's why you are upset. But the truth is, it's because we are upset that there is samsara for us. The real source of samsara, the habitation of samsara is in our mind, the upset mind. All right, focusing more on work. Let's follow that track. You say a lot about work, time management. Most people in this world, say in a city like Mumbai, where you are, or a city like Manhattan here, people have lots and lots to do. Um, how do we manage time? What does Vedanta say about it?
It's a great concept which Vedanta offers to us on that, which is the capacity to look years into the future. I mean, you need an intellect, obviously, to do that. But how far can we look? Can we look 50 years ahead, 60 years ahead? Whatever. How far can you look? And then work your way backwards. So in 50 years, I want to be here. And then, so therefore, in 25 years, I have to be here. Therefore, in 10 years, I have to be here. Therefore, in 5 years, 1 year, in a month, in a week. And therefore, today, I have to do this. Because if I don't do this today, that's not what I'm going to do. Now, what happens is we randomly take up jobs. All sorts of things interest us, all sorts of things we take up. And we don't follow a system. But okay, where eventually do I want to reach? And so we're running like a chicken without a head, feeling, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm feeling like that because I have not myself thought, what do I want to do? So if I start from like the furthest I can see. So some people say, no, I can't see 50 years. Okay, whatever is the furthest we can see, start from there and work downwards to what I need to do today. And then we find there isn't as much as we think there is to be done. The reason we think there's so much to be done is because we haven't thought this thing through. So it just, this time never becomes an issue if you have thought of it in that manner.
Right. I find it's often helpful if we have an overriding goal, that my goal is self-realization or God realization, ultimate goal.
Mm.
And in that light, what do I need to do now and how do I need to do it? The great Christian reformer, Martin Luther, he writes in one place, he was a very busy man during the period of the Reformation in the medieval ages.
Mhm.
He writes in one place that every day I get down on my knees and pray for an hour, but the day I have no time, I pray for 2 hours. That is
Wonderful.
a wonderful insight, that it is really our spiritual state of our mind which is uppermost, most important. Not how much we do, but how we do it. Yes. Let's focus in on specific habits, wonderful insights on, for example, here's one of my favorites, which is the habit of studying. Now, most people, we do read. Most people read, but they don't study really. And we sort of lose the habit of studying once we are out of school. What is the importance of studying in Vedanta, in life in general, and Vedanta in particular?
Yes, as obviously you know, the Vedanta studies is a three-level thing. First is the Shravana, where you're listening to stuff. Like everyone is doing now. We are all listening to one another, to whatever else will be spoken. And that is the first stage of knowledge. Then comes Manana, where you think about it. And then comes Nitidhyasana, where you become it. So if we are constantly being on that superficial level of just listening, then we know a lot of stuff, we forget a lot of stuff, and my life stays generally where it is. But if I take one idea and reflect about it and think about it so much that that idea becomes me. You know that famous story of Yudhishthira? He went to school and this teacher told him, you learn this lesson that yeah, and he went away. He gave the children whatever lessons to learn, and he went away. And then when he came back, all the children, all the Kauravas, all the Pandavas, they've learned everything. So then Dronacharya asked Yudhishthira, have you finished the lesson? He said, no. And so he beats him. He said, what nonsense? You are the eldest. How can you have not finished? He said, no, I was able to do only a very little bit. He said, what is it? What was your problem? But the lesson said, you should not lose your temper, but I'm still losing it a little bit. This concept of what is learning, like unless I become that, then I've not learned anything. That's why in Vedanta we always say, if you don't do it, you don't know it. So now how do we convert that information into being is through manana, through reflection. So our study should be 20% taking in information and 80% thinking about it, because that's the only way I'm going to become it. No, otherwise, I'm going to read it, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to forget it. This is the normal thing. So many things we hear, beautiful things.
Yes.
But 1 year later, what do we know of them? So, studying as a daily habit. Every day, I'm going to reflect on this thing until my life changes. It's one of the most, powerful things I think we have in Vedanta.
Yes.
Concept of swadhyaya, every morning get up 4 to 6 and study. We tell anybody 4 to 6 like they'll say, Mujhe maaf kar do, I am running away from your Vedanta. Never mind, do it anytime, but that reflection is what makes the difference to our lives.
Absolutely. That's sort of the engine of Vedanta in our day-to-day lives. Yeah. All books and talks and everything can be there, but it's the daily dose of listening and reflecting on it, and then action is born out of that reflection. That helps us to assimilate it. I'm reminded of Vivekananda, who would say, an ounce of practice is worth 10 tons of tall talk.
Really.
Yes. One sadhu said, प्राप्त ज्ञान का आदर करें. He says, Respect the knowledge already acquired. Respect the knowledge already acquired. We know a lot already. After you listen to even 1 or 2 talks or read one Upanishad or one chapter of the Gita, we already know a lot. Instead of quickly moving on to the next thing, give respect to what we already know. Your Yudhishthira story reminded me of Swami Prabhavanandaji. He was the monk who founded the Vedanta Society of Southern California, which is in Hollywood. He said how he learned the Gita. So at one time when he was a young monk in Banaras, Swami Turiyanandaji was there. Turiyanandaji was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, a great Vedantist. And in his old age, in the last days, he was in Banaras, in our Sevashram there. So this young monk thought, well, Swami Turiyananda is here, the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, such a well-known Vedantist. I should use this opportunity to learn the Gita from him. And started pestering Swami Turiyanandaji, please teach me the Gita. The Swami agreed. He said, all right, come tomorrow, bring your Gita. He said, I turned up. And the Swami said, take up one verse, memorize it, think well upon it, and live it. Try to live it for a week, and then move on to the next verse. This is my first and last lesson in the Bhagavad Gita to you. You may go. So that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And
The tradition of Vedanta, really, teachers hardly spoke anything earlier.
yes, yes. I remember Swami Tapovanji, who was the guru of Swami Chinmayanandaji, his famous way of teaching, the traditional way of teaching actually. You would have to come and listen to the classes twice a day and then go back to your hut or cave where you lived. They were all monks around him, small group in Uttarkashi or Gangotri. And then you would have to think about it. Somebody on one day, it seems, one novice, brahmachari, he stayed behind to ask questions. And Swami Tapovanji listened gravely. He was a very grave man. He listened gravely to the question. And he said, in answer, he said, Jaiye manan kijiye, brahmachari ji. Go and think about it. That was the answer. Let's move on to particular habits and insights. There are 100 of those in the book. So one source of trouble is a great power that we have, the power of speech. And we are told again and again, Vag Nirodha, control over the power of speech. How does the power of speech, how do we abuse it, and how does it get us into trouble? And what should we do to properly utilize this power of speech?
You go directly to the verse in the Gita itself. It's so beautifully said over there that it should not firstly, what problems we create with speech, I think almost all of us know. We've all been there and done that. But what do we do? So Gita has given that 4-point sort of filtration. How do you decide how to speak? So first he says, anudvega karam vakyam. The vakyam, the speech. There's no vega. There's no force. There's no propulsion. There's no longing to say. That's your first step. That has to take a deep breath. Can't do that. So not that. Then what is it? The anudvega karam vakyam satyam. Whatever we say has to be true. Not only has it to be true, it has to be hitam. Means there's no point blurting out truths which are not going to be, it has to be priyam. And blurt out truths which are not pleasant to hear. And you may tell a truth, you may tell it pleasantly. Do you know where I saw your husband, what he was doing? Very pleasantly. It's very pleasant for that lady to hear all this gossip. But it is not hitam, not in the welfare of the people involved. So here we have 4 characteristics that they've given us. Number 1, you never say anything out of impulse. And just, how sometimes just things burst out of us without us thinking about it. You don't do that. You only say what is true. You say your truth in a way that is pleasant. Someone says, how is this dress suiting me? And you think it's terrible, it's horrible. You can't say, I think it's terrible. Neither can you lie and say, oh, it's beautiful. But what we can do is think of something in that dress which is appealing. Maybe The collar is nice, maybe the color is nice. Something must be good in that dress. It can't be all bad. So why don't we talk of that? And it must be hitam, the welfare of the other person. So if we follow this four thing, that's Gita's advice to us. This is how we decide what to speak.
Wonderful. A fourfold filter for our speech. Never speak out of impulse, never burst out. And second is that which should be true. What we say, truth is the important filter. And satyam bruyat priyam bruyat. So it should be pleasant or put pleasantly. And then it should be of some benefit to those concerned. Saying things pleasantly. Mark Twain, typical humor, he would say that I have often found that those who claim to speak the brutal truth, people say, no, I'm fond of speaking the brutal truth. They are more fond of brutality than the truth.
Yes.
Yes, that's true. On another area of our lives, I remember we were always taught, one of the things we are taught as novice monks is to be clean. Cleanliness around us, surroundings, possessions. What effect does our surroundings have on our minds? Why is cleanliness so important? We were all taught as kids, not just monks, all of us were taught cleanliness is next to godliness. So why is cleanliness particularly important?
Yeah, and you know how much the Gita talks about it. Quality of the jnani, quality of the bhakta. It keeps on talking about it, and yet our country is what it is. So, firstly, it's the easiest way to be happy, right? If everything around us is nicely put, everything like I go into my bedroom, my bed is all not made, all stuff is thrown around. I'm going to feel peaceful in such a room. Easy thing to do. We have these easy opportunities for happiness we don't take up, and then we have on something complicated. So I keep everything properly. Like I get up, I make my bed, and come back to the room. It's a nice, pleasant place for me to enter, not like chaos. And it works both ways. When my mind is in chaos, my room is going to be in chaos. If my mind is not in control, then every time I open my cupboard, all my clothes are also going to come out to hug me. Can't handle this. It's too much. So just keeping it clean around us, even if you're very upset, but your environment is clean, it will calm us down. And the third most important reason for cleanliness is that we can't see outside dirt, like gross dirt. How will we ever see internal dirt? Can't see the mess outside, see the mess inside. Kaise hone wala hai? So, if we can't see the gross, how will we see the subtle? So keeping it clean keeps our mind calm. Keeping it clean shows also the condition of our mind. We're being totally disorganized mentally, then the room can't be clean. And thirdly, we can't see it there, we will not see it here.
That's so true. One of the first lessons in cleanliness I got before becoming a monk as a brahmachari, not used to putting on dhotis. That's the new thing I learned. And then washing it and putting it for drying on the clothesline. So I just threw it on the clothesline. And another monk passing by, a brahmachari, he was not a senior monk, another young man passing by, he looked at it and without telling me anything, he gave us a little sigh, I think, and then came and carefully straightened out the dhoti. First, he wrung it out so that every drop of water was wrung out of it. And then he straightened it out. The edges were matching. So it looked nice on the clothesline. The thing is to see that it does not look nice. It's a reflection of the mind inside, a scattered mind, a disorganized mind. Yes.
Once in the ashram where I studied, Swami Parthasarathy is my guru, as you know. So one day he came to class, and outside the class, we all take out our footwear. And he saw that it was chaos. Everybody had just put their footwear anywhere. So he didn't enter the class. He stood there and straightened out everybody's footwear. And we are kids, we are like, and then suddenly it occurred to us, like, because he's never late. So looking around, and we saw what he was doing.
What he's doing.
From that day onwards, the pristine, the footwear in every time is, I mean, because it's just too much, right? You can't handle it. Your guru is now touching footwear.
Hmm.
And then he said, later on, he had mentioned that what is the worth of the Vedanta class can be known by how the footwear is kept.
That's truly wonderful. This is the story of the two monks, youngsters who went to learn from a master. And after some days, the master put them to work in the ashram, doing this work and that work. Nothing, no philosophy, nothing was being taught. After some days, one of those young men got impatient and he said, I'm going to leave. He's not teaching us anything. He's not teaching us philosophy, meditation. Won't you come with me? His roommate, the other young man, said, no, I'm getting what I want. His friend said, what did you want? What have you come here? You're not getting any lessons. He said, no, I've come here to see how he ties his shoelaces. So every tiny little action, it embodies spirituality. But you're right, this is this external chaos is almost always a sign of internal chaos. And that's an important insight. If I cannot recognize chaos externally and feel unhappy about it, how am I going to clean up internally? One amazing insight, I really like the way you put it, is not to give too much away from the book, but one of the practices there you say is crowd out the bad stuff. Crowd out the bad stuff. How cultivating good habits is has extra benefits of preventing negativity. So can you tell us a little bit about that? What is crowd out the bad stuff?
If we just do enough good stuff, there's no time left for bad stuff. If I'm, doing my, I'm involved in productive work, I don't have time for gossip. If I've kept all good stuff in my kitchen to eat, why would I want, when I'm hungry, there's always good stuff. The thing is if I surround myself with good people all the time, then, I don't have to worry about what bad element comes in it, because I'm already busy with the good people, or I'm already busy with, or I'm already full with good food, or I'm already, so I don't have to worry about these things. You know why I'm hungry? I see a burger or something, then I want it. But if I'm not hungry in the first place, I've already eaten a good, healthy meal, I'm good. So I can just cut out so many stupid temptations that come to me just by crowding them out. Just don't leave it empty. No, if it's not empty, how can some negative thing come in? So if I'm praising all the time, I meet somebody and I say, oh, I love this about you and I love that about you, and this is so great, I'm so inspired by you with this. And where am my mind got the time to think what I don't like about that person? So all the time, crowd out the bad. Just do the good stuff so much.
Yes, you just reminded me of the first Swami I trained under. He was the head of this ashram. This is called the Ramakrishna Mission Vidyapit Deoghar, which was Bihar at that time, but now it's Jharkhand. I remember that Swami under whom we trained, he had this perfect routine from approximately 3 a.m. in the morning till 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the night. And one day a visiting Swami came and he said to me, I like your Swami. He does not have a minute to spare. I never thought of it that way. His whole day and week and month and year was full of positive things to do. He had no minute to spare for anything else. Whatever he was doing is what he wanted to be doing as a monk. And I realized that's amazing. The power of, well, that brings us to the routine or a schedule. What's the power of a routine or a schedule in Vedanta?
Two great benefits of it. One is your desires are fulfilled, and number two is you get over your desires. Your desires are fulfilled because you're doing the work on a daily basis, whatever you need to do. If you want to be healthy, if you want to be wealthy, if you want to have good relationship, on a daily basis, you're doing everything. And then because you've done the hard work and achieved that thing, the desires start getting sublimated. It's not fascinating in your mind. You know that Shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. Quickly indeed, in the world of men, is success born of action. Just do those actions regularly. Look at that, whatever it is. What is it you want? You want a Mercedes? No, do the actions, you get it. Shipram. Krishna says, Shipram, quickly. Don't worry about it. Just put your head down and do it. And once you get that, you stop being fascinated by it. There is nothing to be fascinated. He has a Mercedes, he has a house, he has some wonderful spouse, or whatever. It is the fascination. Do the work, you get that thing. Now it's for you to decide whether it's worthy of putting in that kind of work. And you begin to actually cut down, because you say, okay, if I can have anything I want with hard work, but I can't have everything. So I have to decide what I want and work for that. So I get it and I sublimate it, which is the ideal situation. You know, I mean, what more could we want? You have everything and you don't really have any black market value for it.
That's true. And that also ties in with the importance of time management. The schedule and time management are connected. I remember reading somewhere, what did Mahatma Gandhi and Vivekananda and Einstein, what do they have in common with you? Well, one thing they have in common with all of us is everybody has 24 hours in a day. What matters is what they did with their 24 hours in a day and what I am doing with the 24 hours in my day. And again, the difference is the schedule they followed, that crowding out the bad stuff, holding on to a schedule which will lead to what you want in life. That's truly wonderful. Sri Ramakrishna, when people would come to him and ask him, we are householders, what is the way for us? Often you find that in the Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, people are coming and asking, what is the way for us? We are householders. And he would say three things: Prarthana, maje maje nirjane bash, sadhusanga. So prayer, and once in a while go into retreat. That means stay by yourself, a little step back into solitude once in a while, in short breaks. But also satsang, he said. So satsang, I know that's one important practice you have added to the book. Please tell us about the importance of satsang.
Satsang literally means the company of the good. So good in what sense? Everything, right? What we see, what we hear. If my eyes are always seeing pleasant sight, I'm seeing natural things, I'm seeing, even if I'm watching television, I'm watching a program that is elevating or at least relaxing. But if I'm watching like fighting is going on, and strange things go on over there. But what am I seeing? What am I hearing? People say, what is it? It's nothing. No, we have thought associations. If I see a picture of God, any God, see a picture of God, versus I see a picture of consumer magazine, luxury good, my thought association is different. And I haven't come to a point where I can see everything and think of God. So why not I surround myself with stimuli that makes me think of God? That doesn't mean, we go crazy and put God pictures all over the place, but just stimuli that makes me think of God, or makes me think of my goal, or makes me think of positive things, instead of stimuli that makes me think of silly things. I see these soap operas where there's this bahu and there's this sas, and they're fighting with each other, and one of them is a horrible person. It's teaching me one thing. It's teaching me that I'm miserable because of what other people are doing, because this bahu is so miserable because of what the sas is doing, or the other way around, whichever way. It's teaching me that. Is that the lesson I really want to learn in life? So if I just surround myself, I see programs that empower me, that tell me that, look, people went through bad circumstances and that's how they came out of it. It's very different from, oh, my bichari, my sas is troubling me so much. So
Just sorry to butt in. For our American audience, Saas and Bahu is the typical mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, fight.
Yes, yeah. Oh, sorry, I should have remembered that. This is a very common thing over here. So, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? I smell channel number 5. I smell agarbatti. My thought associations. What am I eating? What am I feeling? All 5 senses. If I surround my sensory thing with good stuff, it will give me good thoughts, or at least it will mostly give me good thoughts, because as much as I'm capable of, at least. So satsang is everything, everything that I hear or see or smell or taste or touch. And definitely, obviously, it includes the people, the beings, the objects, the beings, everything. To be in the presence of good people is one of the greatest joys of life. I mean, even you are remembering, right, all these great people that you have met. We have been very, very fortunate to be with good people. It's been elevating. It's like really nice. Everybody should have this experience of just being with good people.
Yes.
Amongst all the and everything else, all 5 senses.
Yes, and the greatest thing is the company of the saintly. If we have been fortunate enough to meet even one such person in our lives, it is life transforming, and we'll remember it for the rest of our lives without any. So that is the power of satsang. Now, if people are getting the idea that Janki ji just wants us to work, 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 and is putting us to work, sounds like a lot to do. Well, there's good news for us. There is rest also. Tell us about, just to wrap up, tell us about micro breaks. What are micro breaks, and why are they so wonderful?
Yeah. Today, people have sort of divided their lives. I don't know, this 5 days are working, 2 days are not working, and but as you know, most Vedantins never have a holiday. It's like we work 365 days a year, like year after year. I don't think in the last 50, 60 years, my guru has taken a holiday. So there's no concept of holiday. So how does that work in practical terms? It's because you don't rush through the day. You finish a job, you pause, take a small break. The next job will be such that it's not using what the equipment that you have just used. So we now studied. Then next thing we go and do is maybe yoga, because now you're using a different thing. So giving yourself a pause. Otherwise, we're doing one thing, we go on doing it, and then at the end of the week, you're like fed up. So why not take a pause? Why not take a breath in the day? Why not just look out of the window, see the beautiful trees, hear the bird song? It takes no time. If you're sitting in front of a computer screen, get up and walk a little. Just the fact that we walk, it's pleasurable. And so all this is available to us all the time. Every day, there's so many opportunities for happiness. Work is happiness, rest is happiness. Whole thing is Madhuram.
Okay. Yes. Well, thanks to Janki ji, we have this wonderful volume with these and many more practices, 100 in all. And I think once you go through the book, and once we try to understand what is being taught there and practice it a little bit in our lives, we'll get the feel for it, and you can come up with your own practices and own routines also. I think that will be the real success of the book. I pray to the Lord for the what is called the prachara, the extensive spread of the knowledge in this book. Let the book reach millions, bahujana hitaya, bahujana sukhaya, for the welfare of the many, for the happiness of the many. Thank you so much, Janki ji. We now open it up to the audience. I think we are right on time. Yes, Deepak ji, you are muted.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you, Janki ji. Janki ji spoke just now about Madhuram. This was 1 hour of Madhuram. Probably speaking for the 230 participants we have here, we could have gone on and on. We didn't realize 1 hour has passed. We were talking about the power of 3, the fundamental rule of 3. And happiness is guaranteed as much as when 3 follows 1 and 2, when we have Swamiji and Janki ji discussing happiness. We'll take a little bit of a pause for everyone to think about questions. We have Q&A coming up. We're just going to open the chat box. While everyone's thinking about questions, there is an announcement about an upcoming class. As we discussed in Jankiji's introduction, one of our services is weekly classes. And as you can see on your screen, there is a new class starting on a new chapter, chapter 15th, the Yoga of Supreme Being. This class starts Sunday, March 23rd, 2025, from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time. The class is going to be streamed on Zoom. To join this class, the WhatsApp number is on the screen. Please note that you can send a message. Details will be given to you. In case you want to join this on YouTube, we are also streaming on YouTube. You could go to our website, www.vedantawisdom.in, and you would get information on how to join this on YouTube. Now, there were a few things that Swamiji and Jankiji spoke about, which is so relevant for this upcoming class. We spoke about happiness in work. We spoke about swadharma. We spoke about working on ourselves. One of the things that Swami Ramatirtha says, that intense work is rest. So if anyone's really interested in working intensely on themselves, the recommendation would be to join this class. We spoke about having a routine. Jankiji spoke about how if you don't do in classical Vedanta, you actually don't know it. So if you really want to achieve personal transformation, one of the best things that someone can do is join the weekly class. We also spoke about Satsang. So you are with like-minded people and you're learning. Swamiji spoke about Swami Tapovan students who you had to go to caves, who had to go to jungles to get the knowledge. This knowledge is now available on Zoom. So for anyone who's interested, zoom into yourself via Zoom and the knowledge will come to you. There are questions that have started to come on the chat. Everyone can think about questions and address them either to Swamiji or to Jankiji or to both if you want their views. And may I request Swamiji to start taking up the questions and beginning the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak ji. I'll take the questions more or less in order as they are coming up and read them out for Janki ji and for the rest of the audience also. Here's a question from Spandan. I'm 19 years old. I'm a 19-year-old student. My question to revered Maharaj ji is, Swami Vivekananda tells us in inspired talks, where after every happiness comes misery, when is there any specific type of happiness after which pain will not come? If yes, then what is it, and how can we live that happiness in our daily lives after which pain will not come? As the Bhagavad Gita says, this is the definition of sattvic happiness. Sattvic happiness is not followed by pain. So there is a kind of happiness which is pleasurable immediately, and then it becomes painful. In the Gita's language, it's like nectar at the beginning, but poison in the end. And there is the happiness which is difficult at the beginning, like poison in the beginning because it's difficult, but nectar-like in the end, in its culmination. So think about something that you need to practice and learn a high art or skill. For example, classical music, whether classical Indian music or classical Western music. It takes a long time to learn to appreciate it and actually perform at a reasonably good level. But the more you do it, the more enjoyable it is. It's something that can nourish your life. So any of these higher skills, pursuits, philosophy, science, literature, they can give happiness, which is sattvic. Even that is not the goal of Vedanta, but definitely that's much better than rajasic pleasure or just the quote unquote pleasure of tamas, laziness or inertia. Question from Rita. This is for Janki ji. And the question is, I was exposed to Advaita Vedanta at the age of 14, and I rejoiced in the bliss and then got busy with my family responsibilities, continuing the bliss as backdrop. I have a lingering guilt that I continue to hold grudges and don't let go. It's a big obstacle in my journey onwards. Please guide me, give me some strategies to take up every time I feel prejudiced. Janki ji.
I think it's directed to you, Swamiji.
I know it seems to be, but I'm redirecting it to you.
Right. So, what can we do about the fact that we hold the grudges? One way of looking at it, Rita, is to have what is known as correct expectations. We have erroneous expectations because we don't assess a situation properly. So if I look at a fish and I expect him to climb a tree, I'm going to be very disappointed because he didn't climb that tree. So I have to learn to regulate my expectations to a correct assessment. This is a fish. He swims. This is a hot-tempered person. He gets angry. This is a pessimistic person. He cannot see goodness. And once I have assessed it correctly, my expectation from that becomes correct. And if that happens, I don't hold a grudge. It amuses me. So I find it actually quite funny. Now you look at somebody like Mr. Bean. Your assessment of him is that he's a crazy guy. And so when he does whatever he does, it's just very funny. So the moment you do that, if you say, okay, my wife is a nagging wife, okay, and every day when I come home, she nags me so much. So then you say, oh, I have a nagging wife. This is what I expect. I will come home and she will nag me. In fact, the beauty of my wife is how beautifully she can nag. She can nag on things that nobody can even think of nagging on. This is itself an art. And one day I come home and if she's not nagging, I will say, have I entered the right house? Have I gone to the wrong place? Or are you not well? What happened here today? But if I enter a house where there is a nagging person, that is what will happen. The person will nag. The summer will be hot. The winter will be cold. What else will happen? And so then you understand I'm in the right house. And once you get the hang of this, it all appears quite funny, really. Like we used to have this gentleman who was the most pessimistic man I met in my whole life. He was capable of making anything, like anything, look really bad. Like, he'll tell you can take any very well-informed, very intelligent person, very well-informed, and you say, start on the economy. He'll give you facts on figures of how this whole economy is going to crash. When you talk about politics, he'll tell you all the negativity about every politician. Okay, you say, okay, what about the artists and the musicians? And then he'll tell you so many terrible things about all the musicians. All true, all facts. And, one evening with him, everybody could go into depression. But it used to be fun for us because we used to, toss the ball. Like we used to try to incite him further and see what can we say to him that he will not tell us something negative. We used to toss the ball to one another. So he went off on politics, then we would just toss the ball again and say about cricket. Cricket, you know what is happening in cricket? And then once he's had his fill on cricket, then we would again toss the ball and throw him something else. Hockey, and then he'll take off on what all. And it used to be funny. We used to go red because we couldn't laugh. Obviously, he was telling us such horrible things. But it was a very enjoyable evening. We had fun with him because we knew this when he came. So black is the color of the evening. So once you get used to it, it starts looking very funny. So I hope that's helping. It's correct assessment gives rise to correct expectations. When our assessment is wrong, our expectations go wrong, and then there's disappointment. So every time we're disappointed, we must realize that my assessment here was wrong.
See, Rita ji, that's why I passed the question to Janki ji, I would have just said it's all Brahman. Don't hold grudges. That wouldn't have been of much use. Now, there is
Whatever you say will be of use, Swamiji.
Kavya is saying, what is true happiness? I think samsara is real sorrow. Why? Sometimes I want to be a sannyasi. Sometimes I want to become a queen. Why? I'm always confused. And then she follows up with one more comment. What if all renounce samsara? What if all the world becomes sannyasi? Then there will be a population crisis, isn't it? Well, Kavya, I think first of all, the whole world is not going to renounce and become sannyasis, and there'll be population crisis. It's never happened. It's not going to happen in the future also. Um, so yes, so one shouldn't be worried about it. But the whole theme, to answer this question, the whole theme of the triad, the three books that Janki has written, and especially today's session, the whole theme was, how can you be spiritual where you are, with whom you are, doing what you are doing? How can you be spiritual in this life instead of throwing it all away and going off into the mountains or forests or being a sannyasi? The whole thrust of Swamiji's teaching of Vedanta to the whole world, Swami Vivekananda's teaching of Vedanta to the whole world, he would say that he who plunges headlong into the vanities and foolishnesses of the world has missed the way, will not reach the goal. But he who runs away to starve himself in a forest or a mountain cave and to meditate there, and thereby becomes, crushes out all feelings, becomes dried up and harsh, he too has missed the way. So the way is to, Vivekananda said, to deify the world, to see divinity in this world, in this work, wherever you are. That was the theme of the whole discussion. In fact, it's a direct answer to Kavya's question that do we all need to become sannyasis? No, not formally. Internally, that attitude is very good, but not formally, not necessary. One can be spiritual. In fact, Vedanta was meant for spirituality wherever you are. One sadhu put it very beautifully, great Vedantin. I'll tell you in Hindi and translate. अद्वैत का मतलब प्रतीति को मिटाना नहीं महात्मा जी, अद्वैत का मतलब है प्रतीति में निर्बाध हो जाना. So Advaita, the meaning of Advaita is not to wipe out the experience of the world. Pratiti means appearance. It does not mean switching off the world, does not mean wiping out the experience of the world. Rather being fearless, limitless in this, while living this life, can one be completely at ease, tremendously engaged in life, and one can be completely at rest. Vivekananda said, the ideal of Vedanta is shown in the pictures we have of Krishna teaching Gita to Arjuna, where he is holding the reins of those mighty war horses in the middle of the battlefield, talking the highest philosophy, surrounded by imminent warfare, but throughout with a smile on his lips, absolutely cool and calm. It is that intense rest in the midst of intense activity that is the teaching of Vedanta. So yes, thank you for that question. And to the audience, please don't add any more questions. We're getting lots and lots, but we will run out of time surely. So let's just put a cap on the questions, whatever has come till now. Rajarshi Roy Chaudhary, Pranam Swamiji and Janki ji, could you briefly give insights on how to handle loneliness in this day and age? Also, Swamiji was talking about the inculcating habit of studying. Could Swamiji elaborate a bit on mindful and intensive studying habits? Yes. I'll go first, but Janki ji, I will request you to come in after that. How to handle loneliness? So Vedanta makes you very comfortable being alone, will not be lonely. Loneliness is a big, big problem, especially in this day and age in the Western countries, but also increasingly in India. I think somewhere they made a minister of loneliness or in some government because a lot of people, yeah, I saw the news item somewhere. Lot of people are suffering from this loneliness. I have nobody in my life, nobody. It's so strange. In the midst of crowded cities like New York or Mumbai, people are very lonely. There are many, many very lonely people. Now you have a crowded social media space where millions and millions of people are interacting with each other on social media. And yet, these very people who are interacting with any number of people, they're feeling lonely. They're feeling, I have nobody in my life. My life is empty. Whereas I have seen spiritual practitioners, monks and householders, who might have nobody in their lives, really, literally. I've seen monks in mountain caves also, not at all lonely, very happy. I'll give you an example. I met this monk in Gangotri. His name was Brahma Chaitanya. Those who have read or seen cinema, Lord of the Rings, there was a magician, Gandalf, a long white beard and used to wear white dress, exactly like that. He was Punjabi, so he was a very tall, well-built man, and he had his long white robe and a long white beard, and he stayed in Gangotri for more than 40 years. So I asked him, that was pilgrim season. When I went, there were a lot of people, pilgrims had come. He knew many people. So now you are here surrounded by the pilgrims and their children, they were happy and playing. But when in the long winter months, when you are all alone, how do you live? Aren't you lonely? This question of loneliness. He, for 4 or 5 months in a year, he used to stay with hardly anybody. Maybe 1 or 2 monks he might see, or a passing army patrol, because this was on the it's on the Indochina border, close to the Indochina border, and surrounded by snow. And it's not like here in our modern cities in Manhattan, or where there is heating inside, and even if it's very cold outside, there's nothing. It's cold outside, it's cold inside. I asked him, how do you live in those 5, 6 months of utter solitude? And his answer was worth listening to, for all, especially for people who feel lonely. He said, अब मैं मजे में हूं महात्मा जी, और तब और भी मजे में रहता हूं. I am very happy right now with all these people coming and going. And then for 5, 6 months of utter solitude in that icy wasteland, he says, I am in even greater bliss. I live in even greater joy, in complete solitude. Now, Vedanta, it makes you absolutely comfortable in the middle of a crowd and in utter solitude. You are alone, but never lonely. Janki ji, would you like to say something about loneliness?
Yeah, covered most of it. But if we had to take a first step in that journey of how to deal with loneliness, is maybe go and serve others. If I'm lonely, others are lonely too. So why can't I do something? If I go to a party and I feel all alone in that party, I feel like, I don't know anyone here. Then why not I look for others who are feeling the same and go talk to them? So I can cure my loneliness sometimes by thinking of another person who's also maybe has some issue, loneliness or any other issue, and help that person. Because what is it in Vedanta that gives us this capacity to be alone? How is this man able to stay for 5, 6 months by himself? The reason we are able to do that through our sadhana and through our processes is because eventually we have learned to forget about ourselves. I mean, that thought doesn't occur.
Yes.
So, how do we start this? Think of others, think of service. What can we do? And then we come to the stage of this Mahatma and the 5 months in bitter cold. I mean, like terrible situations outside, nobody to help, still fine.
That's true. How do we actualize this? Yes, the Mahatma in the mountains, absolutely comfortable with big crowds and comfortable with utter solitude for prolonged periods, is because internally that person has reached such a state of purnatvam, completeness. It doesn't need anything from outside. So when there are people, his attitude is not that they are here to assuage my loneliness, but rather, what can I do for them? And there's no problem at all, really at peace with myself. Yes, to actualize that, to access that, as Janki ji said, seva is the bridge to expand beyond the limits of my little self. The direct way of expanding is to connect to others around me and be of help to them. Then mindful study habits. Janki ji, how do you study? How do you write?
Well, same 20% reading, 80% thinking. starting small. It's not always easy to think 80%. Like now we've had a conversation for 1 hour. Now to think on this 80% means 4 hours will be spent on trying to figure out what was going on here. So that may not always be possible because we have to grow into this habit of reflection. So how do you do it? By making a promise to yourself. When I get up in the morning, whatever time I get up now, never mind what time I get up. First thing I will do is I will study. I mean, first I'll brush my teeth, but then study. And just make that habit. First 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it will grow. Whatever we do, it grows. So if I commit to something, it will grow. Some days I may be busy, I cannot. Then, oh, I have to go to the airport and pick somebody up, or I'm catching a flight. All these things happen in our lives. So then what do? Go to your book, open it, and shut it. Do that much because you have connected with it every day. So that's how that habit forms and stays.
And nowadays, one can carry the book around with oneself also. There are these little gaps when you are traveling, when you are waiting, and it's easy to carry it around nowadays in our devices. Now, intensive studying, one quick, effective practice is underlining. If it's your own book, you can underline, take notes, write down your reflections and reactions. I remember we were told to go and see a particular monk, we as novices, to see a particular very elderly monk. And our teachers told us, go and see him. See how he studies. He studies, you flip. So you're just flipping pages in a book. He's the one who's studying. We saw Swami Ranganathanandaji Maharaj was the 13th president of our order. He always studied all life long till almost the very last day of his life. And I'll share one practice which he did. Even in the last day, towards the end of his life, when he was dying on a hospital bed at the age of 95, 96, 97 years old, there was a book on meditation and neuroscience, a heavy book called Zen and the Brain, I think. Later we got it, after he passed, we got the book in our library. And I've noticed this habit of underlining. So at that age, this 96, 97-year-old dying monk, he is reading a book on neuroscience and effects of meditation on the brain, underlining. And what was so touching, that towards the end, is so weak, his hand would shake like this, and the underline has gone like this. He can't control the pen anymore. So that shows. So this is one practice, one powerful practice. So that as you said, mindful reading. Rajarshi says mindful reading. One way to make the mind mindful is to connect it with doing something else, like writing or underlining. Then next, Pulipati is saying that I have a query. When I feel someone is doing wrong, should I correct him or get adjusted with him or be away from him? Janki ji, there's the book, of course, you could go and look it up. There's a solid advice in the book. But this question of correcting other people or giving advice, what would you say about that, Janki ji?
We have wonderful tastes in life. We would love everything to be classical and wonderful. But unfortunately, other people are not so inclined to live up to our tastes. And once we've understood that, we leave them alone. Now, there may be some conditions under which you have to correct, like if it's your child or your staff or something like that. In which case, you have to think very carefully on what you can do or say that will actually bring about that thing. And whether really for the purpose you're doing it, is that correction necessary at all? Because you don't get this much leeway with people to correct them. So the power of speech is silence, right? So if you don't correct at all, then sometimes when you correct, that might help. But if you exhaust that 5-10% we have, then that's it. Now no one's listening anymore. You're just called a nagger, complainer. So what we would do if we know it's wrong is first see, is it interfering with a goal, with some larger goal, in which case we have to do that. And then 9% of the time to do finger on the lips.
Yes, in our monastic order, of course, correcting is a big part of life there because, of course, one must remember, as monks in training, we have already signed up for that. We are monks because we expect the seniors to correct us and build up our lives, help us in building up our lives. So we are open to that correction. But I've seen the monks the senior monks who would correct us, they would be of various types. There would be some who would be rough, who would yell at us and shout at us. And I have gotten benefit from that. I still remember with great, gratitude and affection, some very rough senior monks who would shout at us and scold us for obvious failings. There was another type of correction which came out of love, in the sense you admired that person so much, even the slightest rebuke from that person would be heartbreaking and very effective, tremendously effective. I remember this Swami Lokeshwaranandaji, who was sort of central to the Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture in Calcutta, in Gold Park. There are numerous stories about how he would administer this huge and complex institution. He would never raise his voice. He would never use rough language or be sharp with people. I remember monks telling us how they got corrected by Swami Lokeshwarananda. He would simply look disappointed and say, "You did this. I didn't expect this from you." And he said, "That would be enough." So the monk said that there's something that we remember for the rest of our life till our dying days. That one slight tone of disappointment. And that would be enough to correct us. So you have to see what works where and what comes naturally to you. Then Janki ji, this one, Sharmili Patel, I have come to the point in my spiritual journey where I realize the emptiness and temporary nature of all material things and worldly enjoyments. However, I'm not yet enlightened. It's a frustrating feeling to be stuck in the middle phase and was hoping to get advice on how to move out of this phase. Thanks. Janki ji? Yeah.
Yes, Sharmili, that is very much a part of the experience that we will all go through. The thing for us to recognize when we are in this stage is that we can't go back. Once you figured out that it is not good, that's that, right? So you can't go back. You have no option but to go through the dark phase and go forward. And in Plato's metaphor, it very beautifully is depicted this. There's this fire, and the boy, he's left the fire. He goes into the dark. You imagine this, okay? There's a cave and there's a fire, and the generations have been living around the fire. And now there's this one boy thinks, what is beyond in that darkness? So he starts moving out. And then as he moves out, he's neither here nor there because he's left the fire. Now he's in the darkness. He hasn't seen the outside world. He doesn't see the fire. It's just dark. And in that darkness, he hits himself on every nook and cranny over there. But what can he do now that he's got the question? He has to proceed. And so he proceeds until one day he sees one like tiny dot, like a diamond shining. That's the mouth of the cave. So he starts running towards it. And then, he comes out and he sees this beautiful world. But that middle period is there where it's dark and you don't know until you see that light eventually and say, okay, I know now I'm in the right thing. Same thing happens in the Ramayana also. Sita is sitting in Ashokavanam. She doesn't know whether Rama even knows where she is, what is happening. She's just doing Ram Nam Jap, nothing is happening. Rama, kehte kehte biti ri umariya. Whole life is gone saying, where is he? And then Hanuman comes one day and he drops that ring. That is the ring of confidence. where finally something happens where you know you're on the right track and now you proceed. That dark part is there, and it may come multiple times in the journey where you start thinking, what am I doing? But the thing is, once you have the question, what is the reality? What is the truth? How can you not have that question? Once you opened your eyes, how can you not see? So what do you do? Just go through it as best you can. What else can you do? And continue your sadhana, because that's the only way to go out of it.
Wonderful. I remember what revered Swami Smarananandaji used to say, who was the previous president of our order. He would say that not only the end, but the means also must be blissful. Not only the goal is bliss, happiness, fulfillment, but also the means. Fill your lives with devotion, with bhajan, with meditation, with service, with Vedantic study and inquiry. There's plenty to do, and they're all wonderful. It's not that they're all drudgery and hard work, and one day there'll be a great payoff. That's there. The payoff is there. But on the way also, um, Krishna says, Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Even a little practice of Vedanta, of yoga, saves us from great fear. It gives strength, it gives joy, it gives meaning also to the journey. Moment to moment, we see the beauty of it. So that gives us encouragement as we go along. Here is a question from Nitin Taylor, founder, Serve Happiness Foundation. Namaste, I truly admire your work on happiness and how it sheds light on this profound aspect of life. Through my journey of Serve Happiness, I have come to realize that happiness is deeply personal and cannot be generalized. It is shaped by one's values, experiences, even spiritual path. Having explored various spiritual traditions and perspectives, I have seen how happiness manifests differently across cultures and individuals. In your research and writing, how do you approach the individual and spiritual dimensions of happiness? Do you believe that there is a universal essence of happiness, or is it always unique to one's personal and spiritual journey? Looking forward to your insights. Janki ji, individual and spiritual happiness.
It's both. The basic principle of happiness is the same. It is universal and true for everybody. As long as you have a desire, you will not be happy. When you do not have desires, you will be happy. It's the most simple, most basic principle, universally applicable. Now, each one of us has different desires. So, in the dealing with those particular desires which are our own, now comes the individual aspect. But the fundamental laws are exactly the same for all of us. And that's why the subject is also known as Sanatana Dharma, eternal principles. The laws that it teaches are same across the board for everybody. But their application is obviously different in different times to different people.
I'm skipping over a few questions. We have actually run out of time. Maybe we can take just one or two more and then wrap up. Please don't add any more questions. Still, questions are coming and people are very enthused by everything, I think. Lakshman says, okay, Ashit Kumar Shah, he says, clarify between happiness and peace. I think the two go together. Real happiness is always rooted in peace. Lakshman says, dear Swami Sarvabhayanji, how to shift through 3 conscious levels to Turiya? What mechanism of meditation helps this conscious shift? Please give some hints. I would direct you to the Mandukya Upanishad, where one's attention is drawn to one's life experience. It's a common thing for all of us that we are awake right now, we sleep and we have dream experiences, and we have the blankness of deep sleep. And it also, all these 3 come and go to the same observer, to you. You are awake, you sleep and dream, and you have the deep sleep. So who is that you, which is common and underlying all 3? So this is the way of inquiry. This is called avasthatraya vichara or avasthatraya viveka, which is taught in Mandukya. One hint which I give, pointer which I give to people who are interested in this, is that keep it real. Keep it real means connect it to one's experienced reality. Otherwise, something like this quickly becomes a philosophy. quickly, it is a philosophy, there's no doubt about it. There's a strong intellectual dimension to this, and understanding it also gives us a lot of happiness. But that's not the point of it. The point is to connect it to reality. The claim in Vedanta is you are already the Turiya. You're already the so-called fourth, which is the witness of the three. Waking, 1. Dreaming, 2. Deep sleep, 3. Turiya, 4. But the fourth is not something apart from these three. It is that which is the witness of these three, in which these three arise and disappear. These three are not separate from the Turiya. So we are already the Turiya. The thing is how to notice it or realize it. So one hint is keep it real, connected to one's lived experience. Deva Malya Ghosh. We aren't the body, not the mind, not the doer. We are just experiencing without realizing that we can't feel that. But Ashtavakra says we are already enlightened. How to feel that? It's question for Swamiji. Yes. Ashtavakra never really says we are already enlightened. Ashtavakra and Vedanta in general, it tells us that you are the Atman, you are Brahman, you are Turiya, you are Satchidananda. My feeling is, let's not start with saying we are not the body, not the mind, not the doer, not the karta or bhokta, because that seems to be so far from our lived experience that it just becomes an interesting idea. That's all. Somebody said to me, Swami, don't keep saying that you're not the body, not the mind, and that there's no body, no mind, only Satchidananda. But that doesn't seem real at all to anybody. People feel hurt by that. No. So let's say, yes, there is the body. And in some sense, I am the body. There is the mind. In some sense, I am the mind. I am the mind, body, senses. Is there anything more than this? Let's start there. And very quickly, we'll come to see that consciousness, our own existence, does not depend on the body or the senses or the mind. There is something in us which is not, something about us which is not physical or mental or sensory. Now when we center ourselves in that witness consciousness, instead of saying my consciousness, my witness consciousness, my Atman, I am the Atman, I am the witness consciousness. And here is this mind, here is this body. Then the body-mind becomes an instrument, a vehicle, like the chariot of the Upanishads. Now, this is already a fact. That's what Ashtavakra is saying, and that's what Vedanta is saying. But Ashtavakra and Vedanta are not saying that we're already enlightened. We don't know this. In fact, the whole point of Ashtavakra, the whole point of the Upanishads, Gita, all Vedanta, is to make us enlightened about this fact, which we don't know. That we are Atman or Brahman, this is a fundamental tenet of Vedanta. That we are, if we say we are already enlightened, then our road to progress is immediately blocked. We should say we are not enlightened. We should say we hear these things, we read about it. I would like to know it and make it a living reality. And that is enlightenment or realization. Should we wrap it up here? We actually have gone over time.
Thank you so much, Swamiji and Janki-ji, for the session today. We spoke about the power of three. It seems we've gone over, but so many people have stayed. Swamiji, Janki-ji, and the power of the self, the three. In short, that this is such an enlightening session. Just a very few quick announcements. Swamiji, we actually have a winner for a competition that we ran. And with your blessings, we would want to announce the winner. There was a happiness words search that we ran, and Swamiji, if you could just announce the winner, it's on the screen, the name of the winner.
Ms. Bhavana Bora from Pune. Is she here? Yes, I think I see her. Bhavana, congratulations, and a round of applause for Bhavana. You got it right, the happiness word search. And Bhavana will get signed copy, author's signed copy of the book. All right. Congratulations to Bhavana from all of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and congratulations to Bhavna. Actually, as one reflects on the winner, Bhavna Bora has 2 Bs. To be, not to be was Shakespeare, and who will win the word competition than someone who resembles Shakespeare? It had to be Bhavna. Okay, and thank you for a lot of others who worked behind the scenes. to have the book published. We would first have to thank the designer of the book, Kavita Dikshit. Maybe she's not here, but she was the one instrumental in designing the book. The entire editing team who had the privilege to read the words before the world read them. Devika, Momita, Vidushi, Deepraj, Deepak, Surekha, Sanjay Sen. And then the publication team who brought it to life, Mahesh, Taruna. Our coordinator, Bharat, who makes this possible. And last mile of the book, the team that's responsible for getting book in the hands, Shweta and Omkar. So thanks to everyone for their contribution. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a team to get a book out. Just for everyone who came late, a few concluding announcements. We have the book available for purchase on Amazon. We have it in the Kindle format. If anyone wants to purchase the book, there are details that Mahesh is putting up right now. Thank you so much for that, Mahesh. There is a WhatsApp number there. Please, if you have any questions, you can WhatsApp that number. Also, the announcement about the class, we spoke so much about becoming on the routine, chapter 15 starting. You could, yes, there it is. And for everyone who wants to be involved and contribute to the cause, help us take this forward to more and more people. Make Swamiji's prediction that the book lands in the hands of millions and millions come true. You're very welcome to donate on the link provided. Thank you everyone for staying back for a longer time. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you, Janki ji. Hari Om.
Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you, Deepak.